Hi, everybody. So, this lecture will introduce you to the subject, the contemporary world. Okay, but first, I'd like to set your expectation on what you will be learning in the subject, the contemporary world. So, this subject will allow you to understand and look into the present world or the present age, the modern age. Okay, contemporary means present or current. So, if we have history of the world, which looks into past events. We have the contemporary world, which looks into the present age, okay, the present situation of the world. Okay, so the present age could be understood better if we look into globalization. We are at an age of globalization. The things that you see around you are actually products of globalization, right? So globalization class is not just a simple topic which can be explained in one sentence. It is a very broad topic which is interrelated with different sectors of our society. So in this subject, we will talk about economics, trade and investments, corporations, governments and international organizations, people and countries, information and technology as well, among others, right? So we for this discussion we will be having an in-depth study or understanding of chapter 1 of your module. Okay, so for our learning outcomes for or learning goals for this discussion, we have three. Okay, so at the end of the lesson, you are expected to be able to define the term globalization and write a personal definition of globalization also, and of course, relate the effects of globalization in different sectors. So, when we say different sectors, it could be in the government, business, or education, and many others. Okay, so you are expected to be able to recognize the effects of globalization also in your environment around you. Okay. So let's take a look at the definition of globalization according to the Levin Institute. So it is derived from the word globalize, which refers to the emergence of international network of economic systems. So there is interconnectedness or communication between the economies of different countries. There is a relationship between the economy of the Philippines and the economy of Japan and the economy of Singapore, right? So, relationship between the economies of different countries, there is an international interconnectedness. Okay, so this is more of an economic definition of globalization. Okay. Let's take a look at another definition of globalization. Okay, so it's a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and governments of different nations. So this is more of a general definition. So it's not just the economies of various states that is interconnected, but also individuals, companies, people, and governments. So they are interrelated. There is a relationship between them. That's globalization. All right. So globalization is driven by international trade and investments and aided by information technology. So to make it simpler, international trade means that there is an exchange of goods and services between countries. So according to this definition, globalization is caused by the exchange of goods and services between countries. So by international trade. And how can there be an exchange of goods and services between countries? This is made possible by information technology. The invention of ship, airplane, and machineries caused the possibility of international trade and, of course, the emergence of globalization. And an upgrade in technology caused international trade of services as well. Okay, let's say, for example, an accountant here in the Philippines can sell his accounting services in exchange for money to an a US accounting firm. So in that sense, there is international trade happening. There is a buy and sell of service. Okay, so another way of looking at international trade in terms of product is when we in the Philippines bring out or export our agricultural products like mango, banana to Japan, Taiwan, or to the Europe, okay? And then we also import or buy cars, computers, and other form of technology from other countries. That is an example of international trade, okay? So in this case, we have a sharing of our products, our services. There is a sharing of products and services between countries. Okay, there is a buy and sell of services and products, right? And when that happens, that's globalization. Okay. Okay, so globalization was also defined as a process that aims to expand business operations on a worldwide level and was precipitated by global communications due to technological advancements and socio-economic, political, and environmental developments. So, an example of this is when we see international or foreign companies who are operating in the Philippines and in other countries. It means that they have expanded their business operations and they are no longer limited to operate in their headquarters. Okay, so they can also put up businesses in other countries or other place in the world. This is because of the explosion of global communication. It is now easy to communicate. Okay, um, the communication between people or between business people and governments of various countries is now easier. So agreements can now be easily made. Okay, and they are able to open their businesses in other countries because of technology, economic, and political cooperation between their government or between countries. So many countries today allowed foreign companies to operate business in their countries through political cooperation between their governments. So we have laws, okay, that allows foreigners to operate in um, outside of their country. Okay, so many first world countries have developed their infrastructures and environment to make it attractive for foreign investors so that these foreigners can put up businesses in their country, and this will generate more jobs for the people, which is of course good for the economy. So globalization class means that there is international network of economic systems. There is interconnectedness, there is communication between countries or between economies of different countries. Okay. And there is also integration, not just in terms of economy, but there is integration in terms of people, okay, government, politics. So there is unity, right? Globalization also means that there is international trade, there is an exchange of goods and services between countries, there is investments and technological innovation. Okay, so in studying globalization class, there are aspects, okay, that we need to look into. So we have to look into the cultural, military, economic, geographical, technological, political, and ecological aspects of globalization, right? So it's a broad topic, okay? There is more that could be added to this, but these are the aspects that I would like us to look into as we continue our study of globalization later on. Okay, so let us first look into economic globalization. This is just a general, okay, overview of, economic globalization. So, economic globalization refers to the increasing interdependence of world economies as a result of growing scale of cross-border trade of commodities and services, flow of international capital, and wide and rapid spread of technologies. So economies of different countries are interdependent, as we have said earlier, okay? Because there is a cross-border trade of commodities and services. Cross-border meaning commodities and services are crossing, okay, into other country, all right, to other borders. That's not just limited in one place, right? So there is a flow also of international capital and spread of technologies. So when we say flow of international capital, that means that we can also businesses or businessmen can also put in capital for business in other countries. So it's international. Okay, you a businessman can choose to put in or capitalize in business in Germany or in Asia, right? And spread of technologies. So the first world countries who are developed states are also sharing, okay, their technology, right? So before they had CCTV, and we don't have CCTV, but now we have CCTV, okay? Before they have they first had they first operated computers, but now we are also using computers. That's because there is a spread of technology. So an example of economic interdependence is when the US economy crashes, okay, when it goes bankrupt, the Philippine economy can also be affected. So many Filipinos who are employed by American companies here in the Philippines may lose job because these American companies may no longer afford to continue their normal operation in the country. So that is where our Philippine economy is interdependent or dependent, sorry, with the US economy. That's just an example, okay, of this, right? So we are somehow dependent to the economy of one country who gives employment to our people, okay? So there is also trade and investment. So as I've said earlier, there is buying and selling. By the way, class, investment, that means that you are putting in money in order to earn more. Okay, so however, it's a long-term approach of earning. Like when a person invest in lands, that means he would buy lands and sell it after a few years when the price goes higher. Like he bought a land for 1,000 per square meter in 2015 and sold it in 2020 for 1,500 per square meter. So he had his earning. Of course, that is a simpler concept of investing. Okay, right? So through economic globalization class, a country can also enjoy the available resources or products of other countries. So they are not just limited into what their country can produce, but they can also be dependent on the products or on the produce of other countries. Okay, so through globalization, a certain product can be available on a certain country, which means that, or let's say, for example, we don't produce laptops, we are not a known producer of laptops, okay? But we are able to use laptops in our education and in our work. That's because of economic globalization. We don't produce, let's say, for example, Apple phones. But we are using Apple phones in the country because there is a sharing of products. Okay, these products are being sold to us, okay, by the producers, which is or which are from other countries. Let's say, for example, the United States are dependent for their agricultural needs. Okay, they are dependent to the Asian countries or to the developing countries. So that's just an example of economic globalization. There is the interdependency. Okay. Okay, military globalization, it is a process which embodies the growing extensity and intensity of military relations among the political units of the world system. It entails long distance networks of interdependence in which force and the threat or promise of force are employed. So, interdependence of militaries, the various militaries of each countries. Okay, so an example of this is Israel having military relationship with the United States. They have received support from the US for upgrading their military capability. They also conducted joint military exercises where each share their knowledge. They also conduct joint research and weapons development. So military globalization means that there is a sharing of military technology, knowledge, and resources among countries, either through buying and selling or in the form of military aids or help. Okay. Another example is the formation of military allies or ally. Okay. Like when Israel is surrounded by Israel now is surrounded by Muslim countries, and there are countries that threaten to destroy Israel or eradicate Israel from the face of the earth. So when this happens, Israel's ally, which is the United States, may come in to help Israel. That's an example of the intensity of military relations. Cultural globalization. So it is the transmission of ideas, meanings, and values around the world to extend and intensify social relations. Through globalization, the cultures of specific country can be shared or spread with other countries. So there in cultural globalization, there is a sharing of culture between countries. There is an intensification of relationship between countries. You get to know more of other people because of cultural globalization. You know, you come to know their traditions, their practices because of cultural globalization. The culture of another is spread or shared in another country. So because of cultural globalization, we have come to know about the culture of Japan, South Korea, and other countries. In watching Korean novellas, I'm sure that you have learned something about Korean culture. So technology have become an avenue for cultural globalization to intensify. TV allowed you to see and learn the culture of various nation or people. And in that sense, okay, you are learning about their nature because of cultural globalization that is made possible by what? Technology. Okay, ecological globalization. So it refers to the effects of globalization to our environment, which requires internationally coordinated practices and regulations regarding environmental protection. So, ecological globalization class is usually supported by non-governmental organizations and governments of developed countries. So there is international cooperation among countries and international organizations in preserving or protecting the environment. They agree to cooperate or abide by rules and regulations that are set to protect the environment, because usually these developed countries are the producers of things that destroy the ecology or our environment. And globalization is a phenomenon that is affecting all facets of the earth system. So when we produce more products, we are producing waste, okay? And it is affecting our earth. We are all affected by the effects of globalization to the environment. Let's say, for example, since we are producing a lot, okay, because of globalization, so we are increasing pollution, or we are increasing the emission of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. And this is increasing the Earth's temperature, or this is causing climate change, soil erosion. Okay, now we need to cut trees in the mountains, and it's causing soil erosion that's causing flood. So when you see floods, drought, and other calamities, you can call that as the effect of you can call it as ecological globalization. Okay, so or the effect of globalization, and when our government or or various governments and institutions cooperate to protect the environment. We would agree to plant trees in the mountains every year. That's ecological globalization in action. There are other measures, okay, that governments and international organizations are doing to reduce the effect of globalization. Let's go to political globalization. So it is defined as the expansion of a global political system and its institutions in which inter-regional transactions are managed. We say inter-regional transactions like Asia, Europe, okay, are communicating, okay, or they are helping each other. Okay? It also refers to the growing power of institutions of global governance such as the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the World Trade Organization. So those are examples of international institutions that have become powerful today. Okay? So, political globalization class refers to the growth of a worldwide political system. There is a growing interconnection between countries and international organizations in terms of politics. So, through globalization, political issues such as the rights of women and children are now currently are being discussed internationally, and laws are being implemented in each country as a result of abiding in the international agreements between countries. Let's say, for example, we now have VAUSI, or the VAUSI law, the Violation Against Women and Children law. Okay, so that is a result of the Philippine government participating to promote the rights of women and children. Okay, so that's one example of political globalization being enacted. Okay, so globalization promotes, or political globalization promotes, universal common values such as equality, human rights, justice, democracy, and moral values. So, international agreements are being entered into by member countries, and that this obligates them to follow whatever is the agreement that they have entered in, okay, internationally, right? Okay. It also refers to the intensification and expansion of political interrelations across the globe. So there is the expansion of political interrelations. So you can see presidents or various head of states coming together, talking, okay, or agreeing to help each other or resolving conflicts. Okay, so they have the like the presidents in Asia or the head of states in Asia can also expand their relationship. They talk with the presidents of African countries, or the presidents of European countries. So their relationship is intensified. It is expanded for whatever purposes, either to resolve issues or to help each other. Okay, technological globalization. So it is the spread of technology across borders made possible by innovation. So technology is spreading, okay? There is no border, all right? There is no such thing as a border where technology can only be limited in a specific country. It is expanding across borders, right? So through technology, the process of globalization is now taking place much faster. So we can now communicate with each other despite the distance that separates us, right? A phone call can be done from the Philippines to the United States. For example, Facebook and other messaging app and social media platforms. We can communicate with other people of other countries fast, right? And give feedback on many issues also all around the world because of technology, the spread of technology. Okay. Downside, however, is that most internet users would waste a lot of time using the internet for unnecessary purposes or even immoral or unlawful usage of the internet. But when we say technological globalization, there is a spread of technology, there is a sharing of technology across countries. Okay, so computer aided design and telecommunications and other developments are allowing small business players to compete with giants in manufacturing and other fields. So this is one positive effect of technological globalization. It has enabled our small businesses or our small entrepreneurs to compete with big corporations. Let's take a look, say for example, you are now as a student can compete with Super 11 in Solano, okay? Because you can use technology to sell, okay, products such as shirts or bags, okay? So it's not just Super 11 now who can sell products, but it's also small entrepreneurs who would sell their products, okay? That's one example. How about geographical globalization? So this refers to an intensified geographical movements across national borders. Okay, so globalization is moving towards the trend of a borderless world. Through globalization, we can now explore different countries. Example of this is global travel. Before it was awfully inconvenient to travel from one country to another or from one place to another because it takes so long to get to the desired destination. But with modern technologies such as the modern plane, global travel has been easier. So, however, without the collaboration of other countries allowing people to enter their country, global travel would not be possible. So, when you're able to go to China, when you're able to go to the United States, okay, that is geographical globalization happening. There is an intensified movement of people, even what products and services. Okay, so Globalization class is a concept which promotes the idea of uniting all of the countries in the whole world, like unity, knowing each other, sharing of technology, sharing of products and services. So, when you are able to buy Chinese products like your shirts and pants or even the toys of your brothers and sisters, that's because of globalization. When you eat a chocolate, let's say Toblerone that is made in New Zealand, that is because of globalization. Let's say also you are using laptops, tablets, phones in studying. That's the result of globalization. We see an upgrade in the military equipments of our PNP and or the AFP as a whole. That's also because of globalization. Okay, so the result of globalization is everywhere. You are even able to have a chatmate from Manila or maybe from another country because of globalization, or you may even be a product of globalization if you have a Filipino mother and let's say a British father. Okay, and you are a product of globalization in that sense, right? So in the next lecture, we will be looking into one theory on the origin of globalization and also discuss chapter 2 of your module. Thank you for listening.